Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today on a really fascinating figure, Bodhidharma. You hear the name and you think mystery, legend.
Absolutely. Eastern spirituality, even martial arts, right? It
Mhm.
all seems to swirl around him.
Exactly. And our source material, it gives us quite a bit to chew on. Insights into his journey, his teachings, which were, let's say, unconventional.
Definitely
Yeah.
unconventional. And why his story, centuries later, still resonates so strongly.
So our mission here is pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Pull out the key ideas from the source, really try to get a handle on who this person was according to these accounts.
Understand why his path was so different and, unpack those connections. Zen Buddhism, Shaolin Kung Fu, it's quite a mix.
It really is. And what's striking, as you said, is how much feels like legend, but the ideas attributed to him, they're incredibly practical.
Still shaping spiritual practice today.
So where do we start? Origins. The source points to South India, probably 5th, maybe 6th century.
Yeah, that's the time frame. And possibly from royalty? The Pallava dynasty, maybe in modern-day Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh? Think about that.
Born into privilege.
Right. But the key thing the source stresses is that he walked away from it, chose a different path entirely.
That decision alone says a lot. Renunciation.
And then there's his teacher, Prajidara,
Hmm.
apparently gave him a clear mission, go to China.
Spread the real Dharma. Sounds simple, but
But imagine that journey back then. The source hints it was brutal. Across seas, maybe deserts, arriving alone, nobody knowing who he was.
yeah, it just turns up. Which brings us to that famous encounter with the emperor.
Ah, Emperor Wu of Liang,
Hmm.
a big patron of Buddhism, very devout, or so he thought.
He'd built temples, sponsored monks, done all the good deeds.
And according to the source, he basically asks Bodhidharma, so look at all this I've done. How much merit have I racked up?
He's expecting a pat on the back, right?
You'd think so. But Bodhidharma's answer, the source says it was incredibly blunt, just,
Yeah, none whatsoever.
oof, that must have landed like a lead balloon. Can you imagine? But this is where the source really digs into Bodhidharma's viewpoint.
Yeah.
It wasn't about dismissing good actions.
Yeah.
No, it was about cutting through the idea that you can earn enlightenment, like collecting points.
Yeah.
The source frames it as true awakening isn't about external stuff, rituals, building things.
It's internal.
Exactly. It's found in the stillness of your own mind, beyond concepts like merit or gain.
That completely shifts the perspective on spiritual practice, doesn't it? Not what you do, but what you realize.
Precisely. So after that, less than successful meeting.
Yeah, probably didn't get invited back for tea.
Huh, likely not.
Yeah.
He heads north and eventually ends up in the Shaolin Temple.
And this is where the legend really takes hold, right? The 9 years.
9 years. Sitting in a cave, apparently just facing a wall in silence.
Sitting for 9 years. The level of focus, the discipline,
Yeah.
it is almost impossible to comprehend.
The source presents it as the ultimate commitment to that inner stillness we talked about, just being present with the wall.
And then there's that other story, the eyelids.
Yes. Cutting off his eyelids to stay awake during meditation. And where they fell, tea plants supposedly grew.
Wild story.
The source definitely flags it as symbolic, but it underlines that intense dedication, that willingness to go to extremes for awareness. Tea, of course, helps with staying awake too, so there's that layer.
Okay, so extreme focus, silence, inward gaze, and then a twist. The source says he starts teaching the monks physical exercises.
Seems counterintuitive after the wall gazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Why the shift?
Well, the source explains it quite practically. He apparently noticed the monks were physically weak, they'd fall asleep during meditation, couldn't sustain the practice.
Ah, okay. So the physical weakness was actually a barrier to the spiritual work.
Exactly. That's a key insight the source offers. Bodhidharma saw the mind and body as connected. You need a certain physical foundation to support deep mental stillness.
Makes sense. So what kind of exercises?
Breathing techniques, things to strengthen muscles and tendons, working with internal energy or qi. The source names these teachings the Yi Jin Jing.
The muscle tendon changing classic.
That's the one. And the source draws a direct line from these exercises to the origins of Shaolin Kung Fu.
So Kung Fu didn't start just as fighting techniques.
Not according to this perspective. It started as a way to integrate body and mind, strength and spirit, to build the monks up physically so they could meditate better.
Mind, body, spirit, all integrated.
But even with this physical aspect, the source is clear. His ultimate teaching wasn't about movement. It was back to that directness.
Silence and realization.
Right. The source quotes that famous line attributed to him, a special transmission outside the scriptures.
No dependence on words and letters.
Direct pointing to the human mind. See your nature. Become Buddha.
Wow. Let's unpack that a bit. Outside the scriptures, no dependence on words. What does that mean, according to the source?
It means don't just get lost in texts or doctrines. Don't rely solely on what others have written. The truth isn't something you just read about.
It's something you experience directly.
Exactly. Direct pointing to the human mind. Look inward. That's where the potential is. The source emphasizes this idea. The Buddha nature, the capacity for enlightenment, it's already in you.
You don't need to acquire it from outside.
You just need to see it. Realize your own nature. Don't worship statues or texts as the ultimate source. Look at the source within yourself.
That's incredibly empowering and kind of challenging, too.
Very. Don't just believe in enlightenment. Be it.
Yeah.
Or realize you already are, fundamentally.
And this teaching, this approach, it took root. He's considered the first patriarch of Chan Buddhism in China.
That's his huge legacy in China, and Chan, of course, didn't stay put.
It traveled, right?
Yeah.
Centuries later, it reaches Japan.
And in Japan, it gets a new name, one most people listening probably know, Zen.
Chan becomes Zen. Same core idea, different cultural context.
And Bodhidharma himself transforms, in a way. In Japan, he becomes Daruma.
Ah, the Daruma doll, that round red figure, no arms or legs, big staring eyes.
Exactly. That image, the source suggests, comes directly from the legend of Bodhidharma's intense meditation. Limbless from sitting so long. The unblinking stare from his focus. Maybe even the red colors symbolizing robes or protection.
And it embodies perseverance, doesn't it? That whole fall down 7 times, get up 8 idea.
Precisely. It's a cultural icon representing that tenacity, that inner resolve, directly linked back to Bodhidharma's story of discipline.
So looking back at this whole deep dive, it's remarkable. A figure who, according to the source, didn't write foundational texts, didn't build institutions in the usual way.
He just sat. He pointed inward.
And yet this massive, multifaceted legacy unfolds. Chan, Zen, Shaolin arts, the Daruma symbol.
It suggests he wasn't really looking for followers in the traditional sense. The source implies he wanted, well, awakened minds, people who saw for themselves.
That focus on silence, on introspection, it feels almost countercultural today with all the noise.
It really does, but maybe more necessary than ever.
So the final thought for you, listening to this. What if you take that idea seriously? The source leaves us with this provocation.
What if you could sit still enough, quiet enough, to actually listen to your own inner silence?
But may you hear that same truth Bodhidharma was pointing towards?
And maybe that wall you feel like you're facing, maybe it's just a mirror after all.